Good morning, everyone. Today, May 15th, 2026. I'm Amir. Imagine a 16 years old named Leo. He was the kind of student who always had a witty comeback and never missed a soccer practice. To his teammates, he was an anchor. To his parents, he was their steady rock. But beneath the surface, Leo was struggling with a polar crisis of global stress and personal isolation he felt he couldn't share. One Tuesday evening, with a single note or warning, Leo took his own life. His story isn't just a tragedy for one family. It is a reflection of silent epidemic claiming the lives of our peers every single day. We're playing ball. While we often think of these stories as rare, the data tells a different story. In 2024, suicide was the second leading cause of death for young people aged 15 to 24 in the United States, and for every completed suicide, approximately 135 people are intimidatingly exposed to the trauma. Today, I am here to persuade you to join the movement to prevent teen suicide and protect the mental health of our generation. To do this, first, I will cover devastating problems associated with teen suicide. Second, the complex causes behind this crisis. And finally, both large-scale and personal solutions we as a team can implement today. The impact of suicide extends for beyond the loss of a single life. It creates a cascade of unnecessary death and significantly decreased quality of our life for survivors. Beyond this tragedy, mortality rates, the American Association of Sociology reported in 2026 that roughly 700,000 adolescents aged 12 to 17 attempted suicide in 2024 alone. We are seeing major demographics disparities as well. KFF noted in 2026, while overall rates saw a slight decline recently, suicide rates among Black young adults aged 20 to 24 surpassed those of their white peers for the first time, signaling a growing crisis in the marginalized communities. Each death leaves behind the lost survivors who face increased risks of depression and their own suicidal ideation, creating a cycle of emotional trauma that ripples through entire schools and neighborhoods. Understanding the why is the only way to break this cycle. The causes typically fall into two categories: flawed systems and the mindsets that allow these tragedies to occur. Untreated mood disorders such as depression and anxiety remain the most significant risk factors according to the Child Mind Institution in 2026. However, research from Horowitz and colleagues in 2025 shows that the chronic feelings of these things, that belief that one is a burden to family or friends, are actually stronger predictions of suicide and the temporary daily conflicts. This is often exhibited by access to lethal means. Firearms account for 57% of all suicides as of 2024, and the impulsive nature of teen crisis makes the presence of a gun in the home of a carrier to safety. Furthermore, our digital environment can heighten feelings of isolation and the stigma associated with asking for help. Fortunately, we have the chance to solve these problems by directly addressing the barriers we have identified on a large scale. We must advocate for evidence-based initiatives like the Signs of Suicide programs, which use federal funding to provide mental health screening in the middle of high schools. We also need help. We also need support to red flags, laws, and safe storage illustrations to increase the distance between a person in crisis and lethal means. A strategy heightened by the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services in 2025. On a personal level, these are steps each of you can take today. You can take a question, persuade, refer training to help you identify warning signs and correct friends to crisis resources. You can also use your social media platforms to share the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. As encouraged by JET Foundation in 2026, most importantly, you can ask the Lifeline International suggestions, moving it beyond simple "how are you" to ask a friend about their sense of belonging, can directly combat the feeling of being burdened that lead to ideation. Today, I have persuaded you that teen suicide is a preventable tragedy and that we all have a role in ending this crisis. I did this by first explaining the heartbreaking problems of rising rates in specific demographics, and then second, the causes such as interpretation stress and access to the lethal means, and finally, the solutions ranging from school-wide screening to individual QPR training. We cannot bring Leo back, but we can ensure that the next student who feels like a burden realizes that they are actually a gift by speaking up, checking in, and advocating for change. We can make sure that stories like Leo don't end in silence, but in support. And today we have my friend here, Alvor. He's gonna be doing a little interview with me before we finish this video.
Oh, sorry about the camera. Alright guys, as you know, I've been a frequent guest on Amir's videos, so he has some questions for me, I'm going to answer them.
So have you faced a student or a friend or a colleague that has these problems, such as suicide or whatever?
Yeah, so actually suicide is a concept that's very deep in my heart, and also being in a part of a challenged community as I grew up in downtown Oakland. I had a friend named Terry. Terry was one of my best friends. And Terry unfortunately took his own life at the ripe age of 15. And you know, especially in challenged communities, it's very difficult to go through these problems because most parents and peers in challenged communities don't believe in the concepts such as depression and anxiety. And what ends up happening is these concepts are very real. So people end up taking their own lives without us even knowing.
So did you try to help him get out of this situation?
I tried speaking to Terry, but I think Terry needed professional help at that time, sadly. Mm-hmm. And you know, we don't have access to these things because of the pricing and because of financial burdens in the underprivileged communities such as downtown Oakland.
Okay, I mean, timing is very important in this situation, so hopefully we can all help our friends before it gets too serious.
Thank you so much.